Leslie said I started my business last year after rediscovering what I was passionate about during the pandemic. So I'm in the very beginning stages, but I would love to make full-time income. Yes. Buddy post workout mess, so no video. Honestly, I'm proud of you for doing a workout because that ain't me. Um, awesome. Yay for work parties. Yay, yay. I know so many work party people here. It's so fun. Okay, let's get started so that we optimize everyone's time. Danielle says, I want to place good foundations early in my journey for strong growth. 100%. That's so important. All right, let me hop over and share my screen. Like I said, if you weren't here when I said this, I have some slides that I'll share. We'll walk through basically this 3-step process to really simplifying and like honing in on where you can show up and shine and really deliver value. And then it'll basically be open to, I have a worksheet that I will share with you guys. So it'll be open to workshop, kind of co-work, ask questions, and really work through it. And if anyone wants to step up and we can work through stuff together, we can totally do that. But let's get through the content first because I think it's really going to help you guys. So let me, Trigger's behind here. He says, hey. He says that we're interrupting his nap because I'm talking. All right. Okay, can everyone see this okay? Perfect. Oh no, sorry, 1 second. Zoom's messing up with me. Okay, so welcome to this workshop. If you guys don't know me, which I'm sure you do, I know most of you, Sarah, founder of Rebel Office. And today we're going to be talking about really simplifying your way to multi-six figures. And I know that there's like a whole lot of hype words in that title, simplifying and six figures and all this stuff. But I really want to show you how I figured it out because my journey was not smooth. So if I can break that down, it took me, I did like a whole download basically of what actually happened in the journey that I went through and built this process. So I'm really, really excited to share it with you. So, okay, we'll have to scroll. That's okay. So this training, I mean, it's great for everyone. I loved everything that you guys were saying in the chat. I'm also going to open the chat quickly so that I don't miss any messages. If my Zoom bar will open. Darn Zoom. Okay. Perfect. Okay, I can see you guys. So it's great, like if you've been running your business for a while and you're starting to feel like your income's plateaued, like you've been doing the same thing and you're pushing really hard, but you're still bringing in the same amount, like it's not really growing. And you're literally doing everything and you don't really know what's actually working and you don't have the time to grow your income because you're already spread so thin. And like I said, if you're trying to get even more traction, but it's making your messaging really unclear and confusing for people, this was a big one for me where I constantly felt like I just had to keep trying new things to figure out what actually stuck. Like I was like, you know, when you like throw pasta at the wall to see if it's cooked, if it like sticks. That was me. And I felt like every single time we would put something else out, people were confused with like, oh wait, weren't you doing that though? Like where'd that go? And it would be really confusing messaging and nothing was coming across clearly as much as I wanted it to because I was all over the place and I was really unclear about what Rebel Office was, what we offered, because I was just trying to find something that people wanted. So that's kind of where I was at. And if that's resonates with you, we're going to talk a lot about that. So like I said, this was me. I started Rebel Office 6 years ago. A lot of you guys know my journey already, but if you don't, or if you want to hear it again, I actually quit a consulting job right out of university. I mean, some ethical things. My boss was asking me to do stuff I didn't agree with, and I thought that I could run a company better. At that time, I was doing freelance graphic design and people were paying me for it. And I was like, whoa, okay, like, yeah, I guess I'll quit and just make this work. I ended up actually traveling South America for 2 months. We did Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. And then while I was volunteering back in Peru, I launched Rebel Office officially. I registered it with our province and it was legit. So That was nearly 6 years ago now, which is crazy, and since then, I have pivoted more times than I can even count on my hand. Like I said, I started in graphic design, and since then, it's just been evolving. As you know, especially if you're multi-passionate, it's easy to kind of follow your passions and figure out, "Okay, well, I can make money this way, and then I can make money this way, and oh my goodness, people wanna pay me for that," and it's like, "Okay, well, where do I actually want to make an impact?" And you start to, as you pivot and as you experiment, you start to figure out, okay, how is this actually forming? And it's brought me to where Rebel Office is today and what you see today. So pretty much right before the pandemic, I actually took on some opportunities that really showed me the value and importance of pricing. It wasn't what Rebel Office was doing at the time. I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys too, because like this is an honest thing. This is business. It's not straightforward. I took on a municipal consulting contract. I was doing economic development for them, and it was like a $60,000 contract. And I was like shocked that I got it, but I did. And that was a really transformational point for me to realize that, like, okay, one, people have this money. Obviously, it was government. But that money is out there and people are willing to pay me for it and for my expertise and what I bring to the table. So that was really transformational for me. And then when the pandemic hit, I was worried, because no one, if you remember, which I'm sure you do, when COVID happened, no one really knew what was gonna happen. My boyfriend works in construction. We were like, "Are you gonna lose your job? I don't know. Like, what's gonna get shut down? What's not? Is your company gonna fold?" Like all this stuff. And I felt like a lot of it fell on me. So, and Rebel Office to support us in case anything happened. So I took on literally anything. Okay. I said yes to every single lead that came in. I was working 16, 18-hour days. Actually, as of March this year, because of a client that I took on right at the beginning of the pandemic, I had worked 365 days in a row because I had to work for them on weekends. And it was crazy. I was making a ton of money. I was actually obsessed with it. It was like all I talked about. I Taylor was like, "You need to stop talking about how much money you made. Like it's crazy. It's all you talk about." Like I was obsessed. And I realized that, like, it wasn't worth it, which is a weird thing to say because this is all about how to increase your income, but I was so burned out, and at that time, I really needed a shift with Rebel Office, which is at that time, it's literally 6 months ago that this all started to kind of happen, but I was so burned out, and I was ready to burn it all to the ground, and I was like, "Something needs to change. I need to figure out a way to have fun with this and like bring more joy into this because I'm literally just hustling my way to about $150,000 and it just wasn't. I was like I would give all that up to just enjoy life again. Like it was not great. Lisa says I can relate to that talking about money, but then realizing there's more than numbers. There is. And like income is great. It's great. It supports a lot. Um, and obviously, it's wonderful validation. It can have great impact. I'm all about building wealth. But there's a lot that can be compromised on that journey. So, being able to, and that's what this presentation is all about, being able to simplify your business so that you have the space to be creative and to experience joy and actually like working in your business and for your business is really important. So that's why I'm sharing this story. If you're like, why are you talking about this? So when that started to happen, I started to have this really big mental shift. I was like, this is not sustainable. If I want to be running Rebel Office 5 years from now, I can't keep working 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Like, that's not what I want my life to look like now, let alone 5 years from now. So I took a step back. I worked a lot with Diana, who's here on the call, and we realigned back with Rebel Office values. I Diana said, I saw Sarah during those hard days. It's really hard because she was taking care of a crazy amount of things at the same time. Um, but I mean, oh, I guess 2 years ago, I had developed really strong Rebel Office values that exist to this day, and I'll share them. Um, but I kind of let them go to the side because, like I said, when the pandemic hit, I was literally just taking on anything. I wasn't checking in on values. I wasn't making sure that stuff was aligned. I was literally just like, give me anything. I don't care. Let's figure it out. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. So really reprioritizing that and going back to them and saying, okay, what's here, what's not aligned, get rid of it. I'm trying to figure out that. Um, with that, when we realigned with values, we started to create projects and product suites and service packages that aligned with those values. So with that, I put boundaries back in place, which is a huge thing. If you've ever let your boundaries go, it's really nice to get them back. Um, I took on things that actually brought me joy. I started like now these days, I'm working, sometimes I'll work 8-hour days. For the most part, it's averaging around 6 hours a day now, which is really nice. And with that, I was so scared to make these shifts and put boundaries back in place because I thought my income would dip. I thought Rebel Office income was going to go down, and it didn't. For a little bit, it stayed the same and it's been rising. So that's something that I'm excited to kind of share how that happened. And yeah, as I said, when I looked back and on like the how and why it all happened and why I went through that crazy last year, um, I realized that I applied to Rebel Office and going through that process of simplification and realignment. I had done that hundreds of times with other businesses before. I've helped all our clients simplify what they're doing, saying, why are you doing all that when you can be way more impactful doing this, or that's what you love to do? Why aren't we focusing on that? So I want to share that framework with you guys today, and we're going to focus on the simplify part of the framework. So with Rebel Office, we simplify, streamline, and scale. I want to focus on the simplify part, but I'll touch on the others too, as you will see coming up. So, like I said, today we are going to focus on how to craft values that keep you focused. That's a little bit of pre work. It's not necessarily um, part of our process, but it's literally pre work for everything that I do with anyone because it's really important to know what a company's values are because it defines their goals and it's kind of like a compass for making business decisions that are in alignment. And then how to and why you need a method or process to lean on and how to actually build that. We're going to talk about some different variations of methods because if you're thinking like, okay, this is the framework that I have to apply to everything, it's not necessarily like that. We'll talk about that, as well as how and why to simplify your business model. So looking at your product suite and figuring out what's aligned and what's not, and then how to hone in on your messaging and put value first. I think, Diana, this was a conversation you and I had at the beginning of the year that was like, okay, how can we like strip back all of this other crap we're putting out there and focus on value? And I think that was the biggest shift coming into this year was saying, okay, what's all this stuff we're doing? What's actually important here and focusing on that. So I'm going to grab a link really quickly and I will share it in the chat. Let me grab it. Does anyone have any questions so far before we jump right on in? Okay, I'm dropping it, perfect. I'm dropping it in the chat. If you guys want to grab that. This is a fun little worksheet that you guys are more than welcome to print off or recreate or annotate on your computer and just kind of work through some of the stuff we're going to be talking through today and what we can work on afterwards if you have time to hang around. Okay, does everyone have that? Okay. So I want to first talk about values because, and if you've been to any other workshop with Rebel Office, I'm sure this sounds a little repetitive, but values are so important and they guide you and they keep you aligned so that you don't get off track if you prioritize them, which, like I said, I didn't for a while with Rebel Office and I got very off track. So it's really nice to sit down and really take the time, like put your visionary hat on, get a warm drink, tune out the world, and just like sit down and think about, okay, what are our values? How can I craft these? And coming back to them over time, they start to work themselves out. So this next point, they take time to fully get adopted and figuring out exactly the right wording and what you actually want it to be to fully encompass what you want your company to stand for. So be gentle with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself for having them figured out right away. If you've never done any values work before, it does take time. And they're also really important because not only do they help you make more aligned business decisions, but they're often your core differentiators from your competitors. Like if you are a social media manager, for example, and you're looking at another social media manager, what's the difference? It could be in your services. 9 times out of 10, though, a lot of people will work with you because of who you are and what your business stands for, and the community that you create. And that's shaped by your values. So a lot of times I always say, like, I don't know if anyone here has done our position statement activity where we walk through kind of where you stand in the market and what your differentiators are, but 9 times, like, they're always it always comes back to your values. That's almost always how people define the value add that they bring to their customers and clients. So I would say to aim for 3 or 5 is generally what I recommend. But that said, there's no cookie cutter business, and I know that's not really helpful. I know companies who have 8 to 10 and it works for them. It's kind of like their own little manifesto, and that works. But I think for simplicity's sake, aiming for 3 to 5 is a really nice way to force you to get really clear and concise about what your values are. Rebel Office has 4, which I'll share in the next slide. But if you want to think about, okay, where do I even start with values? It's nice to kind of incorporate a few things. So if you can think about maybe a personal value, you as the leader, what you're bringing into the company, what you want your company to be a platform for. Another good way to think of value is how your business shows up. Is it you prioritize excellence or high quality or great customer service? Another one could be like a belief in industry change. So is there something about the industry that you're working in that you believe your business can change? How does that turn into a value? So I want to show you, for example, I always forget. These are Rebel offices, and I'm gonna kind of break down how they fit into those categories. So dare to defy business as usual. So that is the third point here, company culture or belief in industry change. There's business is done a certain type of way, traditional business. In the online space, it's a little bit different, but I think there's got to be a better way. And I think that stems back to my first experience right out of university in a corporate job with my boss asking me to do stuff I didn't agree with, and with him throwing me under the bus in front of clients when it wasn't my fault. Stuff like that. And I think there's a better way to run business. So that's more of an industry change belief. Dare to connect and show up with compassion. That's how we at Rebel Office, we're just committed to being compassionate and showing up in a collaborative way. So that is where we want to, the second point here, a way that your business shows up. That's how that fits into that one. And then these other two are dare to find freedom through entrepreneurship as kind of a mix between industry belief and um, personal belief. I just think that business should be fun. And through everything that I've gone through with Rebel Office, I always come back to that. And everyone on the Rebel Office team, we just want to like enjoy the journey, because what's the point otherwise? What are we building if it's not enjoyable and fun and gives us what we want in life? So that's where that comes in. And then this is very much a personal belief that everyone on the team agrees with, I believe, Diana. But dare to prioritize planet, people, and profit equally. Making money does not have to be mutually exclusive from caring for the planet or caring for the people in the world or that build your team. So those are our 4 core values, and it took us a very long time. Diana, we actually make it very clear when we hate doing something. Diana makes it very clear when she hates doing something. I'm kidding. No, it's true. I don't want to. I think within the team and with our community and our clients, we just never want to force anything on anyone. If it doesn't feel aligned, if it's not enjoyable, then no one's going to show up doing their best work. So that's kind of where that comes from. And these are our values. We have four. So I would love to know, has anyone done values work before? Have you already defined what they are? Is this something that we maybe need to circle back on and do some work on at the end? I have a few, but I haven't really put them into words. Totally. And I think that I think everyone's like that. You kind of have an idea of how you want your business to show up, um, and what you care about, obviously, and how you want your business to represent yourself. But actually putting it down in words is really, really powerful. Leslie, I have a few too. I've done values work before. I like to check in and make sure they still hold true. Yes, love that, Danielle, because they change sometimes over time as your business evolves, as you evolve. Yeah, sometimes values change and it's okay to adapt them. So don't ever think anything's totally set in stone. Um, but it is nice to know that if you, and again, this is more about giving yourself grace, if you're gentle with yourself and you really take the time to let them like massage into what you want it to be, they are going to be longer lasting if you are more intentional and carve that time out and that space for them to grow into what they need to. Okay, good. So now I want to talk about your method slash process slash framework, whatever you want to call it. And I don't really like using the word framework because it feels very corporate, kind of. And that's not necessarily, it's kind of, it might not feel necessarily applicable, especially in some industries. But when you have a method or process, this first point, your framework doesn't have to be something public. So you don't necessarily need to share it with the world. It can be used for internal use. And it doesn't have to be so specific if you're thinking that this doesn't work for my business because everyone's different. Like if you work with clients where you fully customize things for them and you're like, well, I can't have a method or process because then that just like pigeonholes people into something where maybe I don't believe that. And that's there because I believe every business is different. But that said, even though I walk clients through the same process and I have the same methods for addressing certain things, obviously there's going to be different outcomes and we're going to handle businesses and our clients differently because their business is different. So I don't necessarily want you to think that way. I want you to still be open to the idea of developing a method or process. So if you think about what you want to help people with, what is the main transformation that your business offers? Do you, I mean, looking at Heather, do you create beautiful photography for vineyards? Do you help people create an online presence that supports their business through social media? I'm using social media manager as an example, but there's so many different options or different businesses here. Think about what that transformation is, what that core impact is that you have or what you're helping people with. And then think of like the key elements that they need to actually have that transformation. So, going back to social media, for someone to have a really successful social media presence or for social media to have a positive impact on their business, what are the key elements for that? Well, they need their profile optimized. Well, they need a content plan. Well, they need a visual brand presence. And you can start to think about all these things that lead to or contribute to this ultimate transformation. And then you start to realize, okay, yeah, I work on that with every client. Yeah, I do that with almost every client as well, because it's an important part of this transformation that I help people with. And then you start to think about, okay, those are really kind of the foundational parts of the process that I do with every client. You probably already have one, okay? You probably do very similar steps with clients that you already work with, but maybe you just haven't put it down into words yet. So when you start to think about what those key elements are, think about maybe two to four if you can try and figure out what Aim for three, basically. Aim for three kind of key elements that lead to what you help your clients with. And then I want you to think of three more things that actually go into achieving that element. So you can start to build, I'll show an example so that you have a visual representation of what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, you already know what brings your clients success because you've worked with them before. You, like I said, do that process with them anyways, subconsciously. So now let's get it down on paper. So this is an example. Hello, Rebel Offices framework. So right now we're in the simplify. So there are three steps for amplified impact that we believe here at Rebel Office: simplify, streamline, and scale. Those are our three steps to actually achieve this. First, if you're overcomplicating things, you got to simplify it. And then once that's done, it's time to streamline the heck out of your operations and your tools. And then you can start to scale and focus on more growth based tactics. Okay. Now, within that, that second part is identifying 2 to 4 things within that core element. So, simplifying your method. Hey, oh, this is what we're doing now. We're developing a method. And then we're checking our business model. This is all stuff we're about to go through and making sure that it's aligned with our method, that everything in our business model applies our method in a way that resonates with us and is high impact. From that, once we have a really clear method and our business model is aligned, then our message becomes very, very clear because we know exactly how we achieve results and we know exactly what we offer in order for our clients to get those results. So that is this piece, which is what this training is about here. Streamlining operations. So this is where, in terms of Rebel Office, our systems consulting comes in. So project management, CRMs, client experience, developing kick-ass client experiences, lead generation, so evergreen sales funnels. This is all stuff that we talk about. These are basically here our 3 work party options that we've developed here. And then when it comes to scaling your authority, so growth tactics to build authority and more like PR press stuff, community building, and then scaling impact. So, okay, once you have scaled your business, how can you have greater impact? And something fun that we've done is when you simplify, streamline, and scale, you get a well-oiled money-making machine, which means that you can amplify your impact in an even greater way. So this is how we've developed our method. I would love to know if anything comes to mind for you, if you've worked on developing a process or method before. What comes up for you as we start to go through this? Any sort of light bulbs or resistance to building one? It takes time. Like, don't think this took a while. I mean, simplifying, streamlining, and scaling is something that we've talked about a lot over the last year. It's something that we had kind of been developing, but I'd never really put it down on paper. But all of this stuff is stuff that we always do with clients, and it took us going back and Diana and I working on kind of saying, okay, what do we offer? Like, what's our actual process? And yeah, that was the result. And again, too, as you're developing this process, this is a really great place to start incorporating your values as well. So, is there any way that you can build into your process where maybe it's not currently there or what you're currently doing with clients? Is there any way that you can start to bring in your values to make sure that it's represented now? Heather, I'm worried the framework for my social media process is too many steps, more than 3. How many steps is it? So far, like 5. Is there, and they all feel very relevant in their own pillar or step? Okay, well then screw 3. Keep keep 5. It's your business. And I guess just for me, if you can think I mean, and I get that your business kind of has two sides of it. You have the photography side and the marketing side. Um, is there a broader process or framework that applies to both? Yeah. I mean, I would. It's nice to like kind of have. You can also call this instead of method or process like an approach. Like this is the Rebel Office approach. This is the crafting cluster approach to succeeding in building a brand online as a vineyard, for example. Um, so you can start to think about that, and then maybe there's a process there. You can have many processes. Like for example, for building a client experience, we still have a process that we walk clients through in terms of mapping it out and then going back and simplifying and then actually implementing tools, and like there's processes within delivery, but in terms of overall operations or overall I'm not sure what the word is that I'm looking for here, but the way that we show up and do business fits into this. Does that make sense? Well, something to think about. We can workshop it in a little bit. Okay. So, and again, too, sorry, let me just skip to the bottom here. I want to show that. So, this is another way to represent that. So, I had it in like circle form, but it could also be like simplify, streamline, scale, and then method, model, message. So, this is just another visual way to look at it and identifying, okay, what are those three steps in the process for my clients to see a transformation? Um, and then how does that and how does that break down? So here's another fun little way if you want to use your worksheet to map that out. You don't need to do it in circle form. Okay. All right, let me pop on back up to business model now. So I want to now look at your product suite. So a product suite is basically your products and services and how you make money, what your profit mechanism is. So in the worksheet that I'll hop on down to, we'll just hang out down here, this bottom piece here, your product suite. Let me see if I can use my mouse to like zoom in on this. All right, it is what it is. But basically, it's my like favorite tool of all time. It's called a client flow mapper. That's what I call it anyways. And it has four columns. Everything that you offer, whether it is free or paid, goes into this product suite. Okay. And education is all of your free, normally, awareness stuff. So any freebies, all of your lead generation activities goes into education. Where are you building authority to build that trust for someone to then enter this next step, enter into your client flow? So what is that entry point? Most of the times it's very, oh, thanks, Diana. Diana just shared the link to the spreadsheet, or sorry, this worksheet again, if you lost it. Entry is most often very low barrier products and services, ideally very scalable. So things like paid workshops or courses, anything that's low, normally low cost. And low cost can mean very different things to very different businesses. It could be a $7 product, it could be a $700 product. So it totally depends on your business. And I don't want to necessarily focus on price for this, but more where is someone entering? What's that first step in their journey to start working with you? Because then we're going to make sure that you have other products to allow them to grow with you and stay in. Ultimately, you want to stay in your product suite. And why entry level is normally low cost is because no matter how much a product is, the first time someone spends money in, like, they transactionally give you money in your business, statistically they are more likely to purchase again and spend more the next time. So that's why having entry level, I think it's like 68%. I need to pull up my stats, but I think that's the number. I don't know why that's coming to me. I'll confirm that. So don't quote me on it, but it's something around that. And that's why if you can have really low barrier entry products and services, then it makes it easier to upsell later on. Okay. So then elevated is again still scalable, a little bit step up. So it's kind of that in between where you're there to support and focusing on a more specific, I mean, each one of these you want to focus on a specific product or sorry, a specific problem and address that. But elevated is often things like either a higher tiered course or a group program or a more like streamlinable retainer project. If you are in like a, for example, social media management, if you have a more scalable offer that's easier to for you to outsource and train and give your method and process over to your employees um, or team members, contractors that they can then repeat. So that kind of like middle ground. And then elite is normally like very high end, most customizable, and often includes a bit of your time, if not all your time. Um, but this is where you can like all of this, you can charge the big bucks. Don't think that you have to like keep this really low priced, but elite is like very high end. So this is where pricing comes in as well, where you can start to think about, okay, how can I serve people at different levels in their journey? And I know that we're here talking about simplification. I want to just go back up here. So again, the more specific your offers are, the easier they are to communicate and sell. Okay, so the more specific the problem that you're solving, the more clear you are on what the deliverables are, it's way easier to communicate. And I want you to, once you've mapped out, did I miss something? Oh no, okay, I went through that. So once you've mapped out what you currently offer, I want you to then kind of put your critical glasses on and look at where there's fluff. Like maybe there's something in your product suite or something you're currently offering that's not really aligned with your values or that don't really fit into this method that you've now established and it no longer fits. It's just there to have something to offer. And that's not great because now that's one more thing you have to promote that's just feels totally misaligned with anything else you're communicating. So pull back where you can, remove where you can, and put things together, combine them if you can. It totally depends on the business. But as you start to drop things into that little product suite map, you'll start to see opportunities where it's like, oh, why do I offer that? Or like, that doesn't really feel like it fits anymore now that I'm really clear on my values or now that I'm really clear about what my approach is to business or what we stand for. And I know that we're talking about simplification, and there are a whole lot of arguments out there for just having a one offer business, like a signature offer. You offer one thing, that's all you talk about and sell. It works. Okay. It does work. I am of the belief that diversification is actually a good thing, especially for economic hard times. If you only offer a $30,000 coaching package, if, for example, the economy turns and people can no longer afford that, you now have to pivot a lot quicker instead of offering maybe that package, but then also offering a group program at only $10,000 and then a course at only $1,000. So then that makes you more accessible for people at different points in their journey. And what's great about it is that then you always have somewhere for your clients to go to in your product suite and to grow with your business as you grow and develop these programs as well. So simplifying doesn't necessarily mean just one. It can. Okay, it can if that's what feels right for you, but it doesn't have to. And diversifying your product suite is a very beneficial thing from what I have experienced and seen. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll talk about message in a second. Does anyone have any questions about building out your product suite? Have you guys done this activity before with me, or I know there's some other consultants to do something similar. And then on this worksheet, there are a couple of check boxes here. Just a really nice way to kind of check back in. So once you drop in what you currently offer here, um, these are more just like reminders like, okay, are they aligned with my values? Do these offers still make sense? And is it aligned with my approach, AKA method, process, framework, whatever you want to call it. But those are just nice reminders to say, okay, now this is what's here, what stays and what goes, and what do I need to create something new for that feels more aligned. So this can also open up opportunities for a bit more creativity in your product suite as well. Okay, cool. Alrighty. So now your message. Now that your business model is clear, you have a strong method, your message becomes way more clear naturally. I want you to create a content bank. Once you do develop your method, you can then take those components of your method and use them as content pillars. So you can now create a content bank like this, for example. So say content pillar, for us, it depends on how you want to structure it. Like this could be simplify, streamline, scale, or we can go deeper if you want more content ideas, or if you're feeling like it's not all fitting, method, model, message. And then the next one, oh my gosh, what is the next one in ours? Operations, I believe. Yes. Um, whoop, operations, experience, lead generation. So then whenever you have an idea, you have somewhere to drop that idea, whether it's for social or a newsletter that's going out. You can start to build this content bank that any content that you now put out there is reinforcing your method. And as you start to build out your product suite, you're going to know, like, for example, how we know that our work parties, our CEO Systems and Strategies Day, focuses very specifically on project management tools. Our Fun with Funnels Day focuses very specifically on evergreen sales funnels. So I know where that fits in our method. So as you're starting to build out your product suite, you'll know where it fits, if it's aligned with your method or approach or whatever process, whatever you want to call it, you'll know where it fits. So as you start to develop these content pillars and start to come up with these content ideas, you'll also most likely know what the call to action is going to be, because you know which piece of content is most relevant to say, by the way, we just gave you a whole bunch of value on building funnels. So did you know that we also offer work parties? And it can start to really shape the content that you're putting out there and start to build authority very specifically relating to the method that you've developed. So it's always just repetitive. I mean, for you, it might feel repetitive, and we're going to talk about some of the issues or kind of resistance that can come up with simplification. But repetition is like the magic sauce for online marketing and for digital marketing. So the more that you can repeat and reinforce these ideas, it builds your authority in these areas. And people are all of a sudden going to be like, oh my gosh, she's a pro at this. This is something she talks about all the time. She's got to know what she's doing. It makes sense to me. She can help me do it. I'm going to hire her to do it. Okay. So create that content bank. It's a super simple way to start building your content and building authority straight from the message and model that we've just gone through. Like I said, it'll automatically build authority for your products and services because everything is now aligned. And in terms of where you should be spreading your message and putting it out there and building authority, I don't want you to spread yourself too thin. There's a big trend right now about omnipresence, and while it is a great thing and being everywhere is a good thing, it's not realistic for someone. If you're a solopreneur or if you have a small team, pick 2 to 3 core platforms to start and be really great at them. Like, give them all of your energy instead of being mediocre at 5 to 10. Be great at 2 to 3 and really build your authority and connect with your audience and test out that new messaging that we're now developing there and figure out where that traction is, what people are picking up on, tweak it, adapt it. Everything is an experiment in business. Look at the analytics, and then once you feel like that's streamlined and you have a good foundation, then you can start to look at, okay, now where can I grow out to? Okay. And like I said at the beginning, always lead with value. It is one of the biggest things, the biggest shifts that we did at Rebel Office at the beginning of this year was sit down and say, what are we doing that doesn't actually matter? Like, how can we just show up and help people? Like, what do they need to know? How can we get rid of all this other crap so that we can just show up and be the best at what we do? There's so much fluff out there. And now that you have a content structure and a method that you're really confident in, because that's what building a method does, and having a business model that you feel really aligned with, your confidence skyrockets and it's amazing. So now you can show up and be the boss in your industry or niche or area because you know exactly, you have that method to lean back on and to fall back on, and you know that it works. So that just increases your confidence. And whether you believe this or not, I believe that digital marketing and marketing in general and sales is very energetic, and people can pick up on that. So having that confidence is really important. And while you can fake it till you make it, why not just know that it works and do it right and be confident in it? So building that method can really validate that for you and have something to always say, I know this is where this fits in what we do, and we know that it gets results. Okay. So again, that's that content library. And now just to wrap up, I just wanted to go over this worksheet a little bit because we covered everything on this side. And I just want to address these if you're going to work on it over the next little bit. So obviously core values, take some time, even drop in ideas in here, print it off a couple of times, start with one, scratch it up, do whatever you need to, highlight the important stuff, and then recreate a new version. But identifying what your core values are, your method slash model slash approach slash all those fun things, and your product suite. This can really illuminate a lot of like, okay, so what you actually want to do, something I didn't talk on, is say you have a course in your entry. It's like a $200 course. You're like, cool, this is really the foundational part that I just like, any pre-work that I normally do with my one-on-one clients, I've just put it into a course so that they can actually go through that and I don't need to do that with them. Cool, that's already handled. So that's their entry point. Then maybe at the end of your course, there's like, oh, here's next steps to, oh, you're looking to get more information on this, hire or work with us doing this. And then you can start to sell other products and services. So you can actually have everything in your product suite selling something else in your product suite. And that's what kind of keeps the cycle going and keeps people in your sphere so that they're always tuned in, they're always learning from you, they're growing with you as you're growing your business. Repeat customers is such an understated way to get business, but it is so important. So, having a really good experience and having a way for people to continue to work with you is so important because, like I said, statistically, they're going to want to if you obviously do a great job. So, where do they go from there? And sometimes it's nice to, if you do fill in this with what your offers are, just drawing arrows to like, okay, once that's done, where do I send them next? What's my call to action at the end of that offer so that they can stay in it and continue to grow? What's the next logical step in my product suite for them? And you can kind of map out truly a flow using arrows to know kind of what those call to actions are. So that's that. That's what we went through today. In terms of bigger moves, I wanted this spot to just be here to for you to take a 30,000-foot view of your business. If you have time to really, again, let yourself be in that visionary space, give yourself permission to just like have that space to look at things and say, look at your experience and say, what can I do better? Or how can we improve this? Or why do I do that? That's not really adding to the experience, or maybe that's a spot of resistance. So this is just a space where you can kind of look at things and just drop in ideas or downloads that you're getting that are saying like, yeah, maybe that's something we want to like circle back on and figure out over the next little bit. It doesn't have to happen overnight. Brainstorms, anything that comes from a brainstorm doesn't happen overnight. But it does give you a bit of a plan to say, okay, yeah, that's something I'm going to prioritize in the next 6 months to figure that out and really fine tune that. Same with lead generation. What can you do to get more leads? Oh, do I need that funnel? Oh, can I reach out to people in my network who may know someone that I can serve? And I can reach out to them and ask them to pass along my information. Like, if there's in terms of finding opportunities and starting to build the system so that you can kind of have like a tap of leads coming in, what does that look like? And you can start to brainstorm. So I just wanted to leave those spaces there for you to really just think about what the opportunities are. And then down here, take that brainstorm and take everything that we've worked on today and say, okay, in the next 90 days, what are my priorities? What do I actually want to see in place and working, or that we're working towards anyways, within the next 90 days? So I just wanted to leave a spot there for you to kind of build your own mini roadmap to say, even just pick three 90-day priorities where you're like, this is one of three things that I need to accomplish in the next 3 months. And then, yes, the day-to-day happens. A lot of us are still working very much in our business. And that's just the reality. And you've got to do that. And okay, cool. But you can still work on these other projects to get your business to where it needs to be. And picking 2 to 3 really impactful ones is going to help you get there a lot quicker than saying, oh, here's 10 things I need to get done. And then all of a sudden feeling like you don't have the time to do any of it. Does that make sense? Cool. So exciting. So does anyone have any questions of anything that we went over today? I'm going to open it up for the floor. I know we didn't talk about team. Oh, that is something I want to address actually, because it was something, I can't remember who said it at the beginning, but if you do work through a process for how you deliver to your clients and customers, outsourcing becomes a lot easier, because then you now have a structure to train people that you bring onto your team, and you can trust that they are maintaining the integrity of your company, that they are staying aligned with how you want to show up and deliver with clients. So anytime that you're outsourcing, whether or bringing people into your team, whether it's full-time, part-time, contractor, sharing values and really making sure that they align with your corporate culture is really, or company culture is really important. And also understanding what your process is. Because what this method actually does is it lets any of your products and services in your product suite scalable, because you're following the exact same approach for every single thing. So whether it's you then delivering it, you now have a process that you follow, so it's more clear, so your output increases. Or if you bring on consultants or contractors to help you deliver or fill in some gaps, they know that process, and it's the same experience whether you're delivering it or they are. Does that make sense? Cool. It's a really powerful tool, and I highly recommend taking some time and developing this, because it really does make hiring way easier. Well, any other questions? You're good? Awesome. So feel free to, I can stop sharing now. Okay. Feel free to download that link. It's still showing in the chat. So feel free to grab that. You're welcome. If you want to hang out and work through some stuff, if you want to workshop anything that we went through today, feel free to stay on the call. I will stop recording if you have to go. Thank you so much for being here. I love sharing this stuff with you. Yes, you're so welcome, Imani. Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. If you have any other questions, once you've had some time to sit and think about this, then by all means, just message me on Instagram at Rebel Office. It's me on the other end, and we can talk through it. Okay, cool. I am going to stop recording.